So are we seeing this now? Just give me a confirmation.
Yes.
I'm not seeing the hands. Okay. So this is section 3 of the third video in this 3 parts, or it's probably going to be 4 or 5 parts when we're all said and done. So we'll start from here. Okay. So this section is basically going to be discussing the Luni solar calendar. We've already talked about the Zadokian calendar and the Jewish Pharisaical one, and I gave my points for why I disagreed with those. Okay, so now we're going to look at the proofs and the criticisms against this calendar. Okay, many of the points I've already made in this teaching, but I will mention them again, perhaps not at quite the depth that I went into in some of the other sections, but I probably will touch on all of these again. So there's going to be, this section is going to be broken down into 3 parts. Arguments against the lunisolar calendar, in other words, what the other proponents of the other calendars are saying against this calendar that I'm going to be presenting today, arguments for it, and then extra biblical textual support for this calendar. Okay, so basically 3 sections. Yes, go ahead. Did someone raise their hand? Or?
Oh, that was me. I just sent a message that Joan, we just started, so she hadn't missed anything.
Oh, great.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't see that you joined. Shalom, sister. Yeah, nice to see you.
And you guys, shalom.
We're just starting. This is the first slide, so your timing's impeccable.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
What number slide are we on, Gaetano? I thought
266 in the keynote presentation, or in the PowerPoint that you have.
266.
If you want, I'll give you a moment to open up to that, and then I'll continue on. Let me know when you're there, Denise. And
when does a biblical day start?
266.
Yep, that's fine.
On the one that I sent, today, this after, like I sent one the last couple of hours. It's not the original ones. I've modified these slide presentations.
That's the original one, yeah.
Yeah, if it's the original one, it's not going to be correct. I don't know what slide number it would be in that series. It may, because I've modified these slides. I've put them in different orders. So if you can open up the one I sent earlier today, then you'll be in sync with me.
Okay. I shall do that.
Yeah.
Well, you can go ahead. I'll catch up with you.
Okay. Yeah. So 266, 260. That's where I'm here. If you catch up, and we'll go from there. Okay. So I'm going to go to 267. Okay. So the lunisolar, the arguments against lunisolar are as follows. 1, that Seder day is the 7th day of the week. Okay. Number 2, Seder day is the Shabbat in an unbroken 7-day cycle back to creation. Okay. Number 3, there is nothing in the heavens on a 7-day cycle. Saturday in many languages is referred to as Shabbat or the Sabbath. Okay. Then there's this thing called the sign of Jonah, which is 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. Okay. They use they also use the creation week against this lunisolar calendar. Okay. So let's touch on each of these points one by one. Okay, Seder day is the 7th day of the week. Proponents of this argument state that the Seder day is the 7th day of the current weekly cycle, and therefore it must be the biblical 7th day. Okay, this one's pretty easy to debunk. Saturday was not always the 7th day, but actually it was the 1st day of the week originally, and it was changed to the 7th day by Constantine when he decided to elevate the prominence of the sun's day, thus making it the 1st day, and the Shabbat the 7th day. So the Seder day was relegated from the 1st day to the 7th day. So this claim that Seder day is the 7th day of the week is not based in anything biblical. It's been modified by man. Okay, so this is not an argument in any sense of the word. Okay. The second one is that Seder day is the Shabbat in an unbroken 7-day cycle back to creation. Again, we've seen this. This claim is not has no basis in Scripture. As a matter of fact, Scripture disproves this claim. And look at Lamentations 2:6. I think we've read this before. And he has violently taken away his tabernacle as if it were of a garden, and he destroyed his place of the assembly. Yahuwah has caused the solemn feasts and the Shabbaths to be forgotten in Zion, and has despised in the indignation of his anger the king and the priest. Okay, so what that's saying is he's taken the Shabbats away from the Yisrael, from his people, because they did not keep his ordinances nor his commandments. Okay, and the other thing is, are we doing that today? Are most of the so-called believers, if they're not keeping the proper Shabbats, or not just the Shabbats, any of the commands, like wearing tzitzits and not eating pork, and we know what they are. Is he not going to take the Shabbats away from us? Well, I believe he has. I think he's kept us in the dark from the Shabbats since probably the 2nd or 3rd century after the cross. And we've been in darkness. And now in the last days, though, he said he will restore his people. And they shall prophesy and see signs and wonders and all these other things. And this is what we're starting to see. There seems to be a revival going on, okay? Now, one can argue that at the time of Yeshua, the Sabbath must have been correct. And since Yeshua kept the Sabbath correctly, and I fully agree with this, there's no way that he would have been keeping this. But my question is to anyone, how do we know that it's been kept continually since then, okay? How can you be certain of this? We're talking about 2,000 plus years, and that's a lot of time, and a lot of things can happen in that time, okay? So perhaps things have changed since the time Yeshua was walking with us, okay? Consider who the main parties controlling things since that time were, okay? We're talking, initially it was the Roman Empire, then the Catholic or the Universal Church, along with Pharisaical Judaism, all of which seem to have adopted a 7-day repeating cycle. Okay. Well, why would they all agree on a 7-day system? And who wound up controlling all of these worldly systems? I think everyone that's in this group right here would fully agree that all of these 3 entities I just described, the Roman Empire, the Catholic Universal Church, and Judaism, they're not in line with the will of the Creator. So who are they in line with? Okay, and why they all seem to be on the 7? Does that make sense? Okay. Then the daughter, the Protestant church, started sprouting out, but they just kept their traditions of the mother church when it came to the Shabbat question. They revolted against the indulgences that the Catholic Church was trying to enforce on people, to try to extort money from them for their building an empire, their empire building that they were pursuing. So I'm assuming that they did not want anything to do with the Jews. So the reason that the Protestants stayed on the same Shabbat is they didn't want to be associated with the Jews, who they thought crucified Yeshua. That's why I believe they stayed on the Sunday trajectory. Okay. These groups and their teachings are who you need to depend on to determine if the 7-day cycle went back at least to the time of Mashiach. Do you really think you want to put your faith in these institutions? Because they're like, if you believe that Saturday has gone back since then you're depending on these people to tell you which day it is. Okay? Because we have no other way of knowing if we don't use the luminaries. If we don't use the luminaries, we're trusting in men. These are the 3 main groups that have been in charge of these of the calendar since that time. Seder day is the Shabbat and a number. Okay, so this is also consider the fact that throughout biblical history, Yahuwah, whenever his followers abandon his feasts and commands, he makes them forget his Shabbats. Okay, my question is here, do you think most believers today are keeping his Torah? No, I don't think so. Most of them are following after what their own itching ears want them to hear. Okay? So then my question again is, do you think he would let this system keep his Shabbats correctly? Okay? I don't think so. I think he's taken it from our memories, as he said he would. Okay. Okay, so this is the third argument against lunisolar, and this is that there's nothing in the heavens on a 7-day cycle. Okay, well, I think we've covered that in previous episodes, but I'm going to show this again, that there is a sign in the heavens, and we can see it with our own eyes, that Yah did give us a repeating 7-day sign in the Shemaim, and it's the lit cycle of the moon. Okay, which there's a lit portion and there's an occulted portion of the moon, which is the occulted portion are the new moon days, which are 1 or 2 days every month, depending on the length of the month, or depending on how the moon cycles through that month. Okay, but the lit portion is made up of 28 days. So 7-day cycles. And I think we've all seen this, one or the other. As you can see, the last column on the right, that is all the Shabbats and the new moons. The 2 dark moons are the new moons. The other ones are the Shabbats, the 4 weekly Shabbats. And then in the columns on the left, the 6 columns to the left of that, those are the work days. Those are all work days. So the top row, you have week 1, which starts with day 2 and goes to day 8. Then you have week 2, which starts on day 9 and goes to day 15. Then day 16, which is the start of week 3 and goes to day 22nd. And then day 23 to day 29, which is the last Shabbat and the last sliver. Then comes New Moon Day. Okay, and this is where I was saying I believe that to determine the new moon day, we have to look at the slivers in the eastern sky at the end of the month, not to observe the moon in the western sky in the evening after the new moon, because then it's too late. It doesn't tell you when new moon day actually is. It does, but it tells it to you after the fact, which I think they wanted to know it beforehand so they could do the appropriate sacrifices as commanded. Okay, and we'll get into that when I do if I do a study on that. Okay. Okay, the next argument that's presented against the lunisolar calendar is that Saturday in many languages is referred to as the Sabbath or Shabbat. Okay, so this I say, okay, yeah, so what? Okay, I mean it's in the Italian language, it's called Sabato, and that's the name for Saturday, the Seder day. Okay, but of all the languages that exist, the Shabbat is used for the name of one of the days in only a small percentage of the cases. Most of them don't have anything to do with in their language, have nothing that's associated with the Shabbat. Some do, as I said, the Italian language does. I think the French and some of the other languages, but that's really is not proof of anything. Okay, they probably did take this name. They did. I'm sure they did, because Sabbato does mean 7 from the Hebrew, which we're following the true Torah. But just because some languages use the phrase Shabbat, which means 7 and rest, it does not mean that it was the true Shabbat that they actually applied it to. They could have just taken it and then put it into a recurring 7-day cycle. So this is not really proof in my view. It just means that they adopted certain traditions from the Hebrew, the children of Israel, but they never really followed it through because they did corrupt it, obviously. Okay, so I don't see this as being proof of anything, because there's not many languages that actually have this to begin with. Okay, and there's the sign of Jonah, which they claim is 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. And again, now first fruits destroys this argument. This is what we were talking about earlier. Okay, if this sign is not referring to Yeshua's time in the tomb, what does it mean? Okay, as much as I've understood it, I can present it as 2 possible explanations. I think we went over that. One was when Yeshua was speaking, when he was speaking of the heart of the earth, he was not talking about his time in the tomb, but much more spiritually significant time of which he was separated from the Father. And I showed, I'll show it on the next slide, where it starts in the Garden of Gethsemane, and you can count the days. And again, even if you do it that way, you're still using inclusive counting. You're not using exclusive counting. In other words, it doesn't equate to 3 full days and 3 full nights, even with that. And you'll see that in the next slide. Okay, so when did he become separated from his father? Okay, that's a good question. If I had to wager, and giving, you know, the way I would assume things, the suffering started for him in the Garden of Gethsemane on the 13th, when he sweated blood. And that's when he became separated from his father and started to suffer, since his father took away his protection in this earthly realm, and allowed sin to enter into him. Okay, and this is what I presented at the last meeting, the 13th. Now this is reckoning from day. The day-night portion is the first part of the 13th, then the evening comes in, then the 14th, the 15th, and the 16th. Okay, so on the 13th, they have their Last Supper that evening, and then they go to the garden. That's what the G stands for, the Gethsemane. If that's when he was separated from his father, and he started to receive trials and tribulations, then that underneath that's the first night. There's the one N is means first night. Then the next day was the day that, you know, when he was brought to trial and he was crucified and he died on the 9th hour. That's the first day of the 14th. Then the second night would be the evening of the 14th that he spent, that they put him in the tomb at some point during that period. And he was in the tomb for the Shabbat, which is on the 15th, for the second day and the third night. Okay, and then on the third day was the resurrection on the 16th of the first month of Nisan. Okay, so we're all seeing this, but even there you see that the first night and the third day were not complete days, or were not complete time periods, because Gethsemane was happening near the middle of the night, or quite late on. It was completely dark. It actually passed evening. So you can't count that as a full night, like full 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. So I think it's using inclusive counting the way that the Jews normally do. Okay. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to. Okay. So we'll carry on. Okay. Okay. The other option I can present here is that the 3 full days that this sign is referring to is to use the day as a year analogy, in which Yeshua's ministry was 3 years in the land. So it could be said that he was in the heart of the earth, which is referred to as Israel, for 3 biblical days, or 3 full years. Okay, no matter. First fruits totally disproves that this one passage is referring to our Savior's time in the tomb itself. Okay, it cannot mean that, because we have many scripture verses that say he will be raised on the 3rd day. Okay, if 3 days and 3 nights were true, then he would have had to been raised on the 4th day, which is again is a contradiction. So we must follow the preponderance of the evidence here, because there's many verses in scripture that say on the 3rd day, and this is the only one that seems to say after 3 days and 3 nights. Okay, so if I go back to this, if you look at this chart right here, if you take when he was put in the tomb, it had to be after dark on the 14th. There's no way he could have been put in the grave before sundown. It just the things, and I'll vet this out later on in this presentation. All the things that had to transpire from when they found him dead at the 9th hour till the 12th hour, when it became dark. In other words, the evening started. There's no way they could have gotten him into the grave before that. There's too many things that had to have transpired, which means he was buried. He was put in the grave sometime on the second night in this view, on the 14th, in the dark portion of it. So that would mean, let's count inclusive counting. That would be 1 night, then the Shabbat day, then the Shabbat night. So that's 2 nights and 1 day. And then the next day he rises, and that you can count that as the second day. So the best you can get with inclusive counting from the 14th to the 16th, and the 16th has to be when he rose, because that is first fruits. It has to be first fruits. If first fruits is not on the 16th, then everything is totally out of whack and you can't make sense of any of this time. And that's only 2 days and 2 nights. So this sign of Jonah cannot be referring to the time in the tomb. And that's why I went back to that, just to confirm. It has to mean something else. And what I do, but if I had to pick of these two, I would say it was the time he was separated from his father. And in using inclusive counting, that becomes 3 days and 3 nights. Okay, and that's how I'm seeing it. Anyone have any thoughts or inputs into that? They're more than welcome to chime in here. If not, I'll just carry on. Okay. Now the creation week. That's another argument that they will use. Okay, they will claim that there was darkness before the "let there be light" part. Which was part of the first day of creation, which proves an evening to evening day. Okay, this is what they're saying. Against most scripture seems to contradict this. But let's read Genesis 1:4-5. And Elohim saw the light, that the light was good, and Elohim divided the light from the darkness. Elohim called the light day, and he called the darkness night. And there was evening and morning were the first day. Okay. Notice that scripture says that Yahweh created the light and separated it and gave it names. And they use the conjunction "and." There was evening and morning the first day. Okay, that "and" should not be there if that's how it was supposed to be read. Okay, because it's connecting these two together. Okay. It should say "so and therefore there was evening and there was morning." Okay. After the "let there be light." If that was to be the bookmark to start the day, then or the bookmark to start the day was actually the darkness before, when he created the heavens and the earth. So he created the heavens and the earth, and there was light. Okay. And then this is just a wrap up, but they shouldn't use that conjunction there. Okay, it is linking the part before it, which is the creating of light and separating it from the darkness. This is the work part of the day, to the part after it, which is from evening, which is the time between sunset and total darkness. Because as soon as the sun goes down, there's a period where the sun is not, the sun is below the horizon, and there's still light until it gets completely dark. That is referred to as evening. Biblically, I think that's what evening means. It's the period after sunset, but before complete darkness. And morning, the term morning, it has many connotations, but biblically, I believe morning is the time between first light appearing and the actual sunrise. That is, in my understanding, what biblical morning is. And thus, this makes sense. Okay, because then what it's saying is let there be light is the bookmark to start the day, and then there was evening, the portion where it's starting to get dark, and then the morning watch where it starts, light breaks, and then it goes right up until sunrise, and that's the bookmark that ends the day. Okay, and he called that the first day.
Kitano.
Okay. Yes, by all means. Mm-hmm.
That was an excellent laying out of that 24-hour period called a yom, a day.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And you've got the Booker light, and you've got the Erev light. I believe the Erev is when the sun is going down, like twilight. The sun has set, but there's still light in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
And then it goes completely dark. So that type of waning light, we would call it evening, Erev. Mm-hmm. And then the Booker is the Hebrew. That would be your light that comes on the horizon before that you see the sunrise. Mm-hmm. That would make perfect sense as to why it says, and there was evening and morning the first day.
And the conjunction that joins the work that was done by creating the light and separating it. That was the work part of the day. Yeah, exactly. I think I'm going to touch it a little bit more, but thank you for the clarification, Scarlett. Okay. Also, please note the term morning can at most mean up to noontime. Okay, because many people consider morning anything before noon. Okay, because this is just the connotation since the calendar's been messed with so much in the last 3,000-4,000 years. Okay, so it does have that connotation, and so some people think that, but it can never mean the full portion of the daylight period. So if they say evening and morning, well, that'll only get you up to about noon, but you're supposed to go up to the evening time again, you know, at sunset. That's how they reckon their days, from evening to evening. So it can't, Genesis creation, we cannot condone something, you know, a day being what they claim it to be. Okay, so does this mean that the first day was from evening to noon? Okay, no, this is obviously wrong. It should never be read this way. Definitions of time in the biblical narrative need to bookmark the start and end times. As a matter of fact, all our definitions, as I said earlier in the previous presentation, the Bible defines what a day, what a week, what a month, and what a year is. And it does so by bookmarks. And this is the bookmark for the day. Okay, the end bookmark here is morning, which means, and this you'd usually refer to sunrise, but most certainly cannot refer to sunset. Okay, which is what they need you to believe if the day was evening to evening. Okay. I made the claim earlier that the darkness before the light in "Let There Be Light" was new moon day. Okay, and this is what I talked about in a previous recording of the first month of the creation, when Yahweh bara everything into existence. And this is what Scarlett had mentioned previously also. During the creation week, he then, so what I'm suggesting here is that on the first day of creation, I consider it new moon day, and there was darkness, and he created basically everything that exists. It was formless and void. It didn't have any purpose, and it didn't have any function, but things were all laid out. All the raw materials were brought into existence. Then during the creation week, the 7-day period that he set apart as a Shabbatoth, or a week period, that he used as an example for us to follow for our weekly cycles, then he saw all things. He formed them and he assigned them their duties. How do we know? How do we know this? Well, the stars, the angelic hosts, okay, which many believe were formed on day 4, along with, you know, with all the other luminaries, okay. Well, they were singing for joy when Yah was laying the foundations of the earth in Job, right? How can that be? If the angelic host that were, you know, were shouting for joy, you know, on the laying of the foundations of the earth, they must have been present to do that, which means that they were present at the very first of creation, which would have been new moon day, in my opinion, new moon day, the first day of creation. Okay, and then on the day 4, when he says all the luminaries he created, he didn't create them; he assigned their duties. So the sun and the moon were also created on day 1. That's when time started, because there are people that are claiming that time starts on day 4. Well, that's ridiculous. What were day 1, 2, and 3 all about then? Were they not time periods? They had to be. Okay, so this is how this all makes sense now. Okay, because what he did is he created everything, and then he set them in place for their roles and assigned their responsibilities to them. Okay, and that's okay. Now, also, I want to check out this video, and I want us to watch it because it's quite good. I don't know if any of you have seen it, but I'm going to bring it up here. Let's see if I can bring it up. Why is it not? This link is not working for me now. You know what? I'm going to skip. I'm going to bring the video. I have the video up later on in this presentation again, so I'm just going to go find it very quickly. Just give me a moment right here. Here's the video. It's about 10 minutes, so just bear with it.
Gaetano, we cannot hear it.
You guys can't hear it?
No,
Can
we
you
can.
can
We
you-
can't.
okay. Okay. So what am I doing wrong here? I can hear it, so let me see. My mic is on. Oh, you know why? Because I'm using my wireless headphones. Let me yeah, I think I know what the problem is. Give me 1 minute. I'll just replay that for us all. I've got to go into settings here. Okay, settings, audio.
We can't hear anything, Gaetano. At least I can't.
Can you hear me now? You can hear me now, right? Hello?
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
Okay.
Maybe you could try turning off the microphone. I don't know if that make a difference or not. And
Well,
then just look.
it is turned up. Why do you have to make this so difficult? Okay, noise cancellation, but push to talk, speaker. Oh, maybe it's my speakers. Hang on a second. Let's try this one. I'm gonna start that video again. Just please give me some confirmation that you're either hearing it or you're not. So because I can hear it. I've been hearing it all along. Can you guys hear that?
No. Still nothing.
Just try it.
Sorry, can you hear that? Did someone say something?
Oh, we don't
I
have.
can't hear you guys now. Can you hear it?
No.
Nope.
No. My apologies, ladies. I'm not sure why I can't get the sound coming through. Yes, that's video. That should be the audio. Sound from the mic that isn't speech. All control.
Gaetano, is there something on there that says share audio box?
There is when you make the recording start, it asks you if you want to share the audio as well.
Yeah, share the
Okay, hang on. Okay,
share.
hang on a second. Let me see. Okay, I'm gonna go back here, and then I'm gonna come back here. I'm gonna start it.
And click audio to change your microphone and speak.
Yeah, hang on a second. I see something here. We've translated.
Yeah, I remember
Replace load video on click. Title caption. Stop sharing. No, it seems to be. You're still not hearing it, are you?
Nope, not hearing it.
Hmm. I
Are you in companion mode by chance, or you don't know that?
I don't know what companion mode is,
Oh,
at least off the top. I mean, I'm just looking on their load video order. It seems okay. That seems all right. I'm just not sure why the sound is. Yeah. Hmm. You know what? Let me see if I can bring it up as a separate web page. Okay. In my browser and just play it out of the browser. I might. Okay, and I have to go back to it. Where was I? Probably somewhere right here. Michael Heiser link. Open link. Let's see if this works. I'm just going to share a different screen. I'm going to stop sharing this link. I'm going to share my browser link. Okay. So I'm going to stop this for a moment. I'm going to come back. We're at 280. So stop sharing and let me reshare something here. Okay, let's go here. Here. Brave tab. Why is that tab not showing?
do you still have your video off on the tab below?
Just give me a moment here.
Okay.
You might be able just to go to YouTube and share screen and get it direct.
That's what I'm doing. But it's not showing me that screen. Let me see if I can find it in here.
Gaetano, is that the one we have translated Genesis 1 wrong?
Yeah, you may have seen this. I think I may have
Yeah.
shared it with you guys. It's basically it comes down to the fact that the first line of Genesis, it states, "In the beginning, God created the heavens." You can say, you can look at it that way, but actually the Masoretic texts, actually with their vowel pointings, point to when God began to create the heavens and the earth.
I just
Okay,
put the
and
link in the description box.
Yeah, it's the same video, but I can't even share that video. Like I'm trying to bring that up as a separate video here, and it's this is really wonky here. Let me just see if I can share this window right here. Share. Can you guys see that? Are you seeing the video now? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to play it and see if this helps. You guys can hear it now.
No.
Is that good?
No, I cannot hear it.
Okay, I don't know what's going on with this sound. There's some conflict happening here. I'm on Bluetooth headphones and I'm hearing everything inside my head, my headphones, but it's not sending the signal out to.
Can you turn the Bluetooth tube off?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I can go into settings and
I think we're not hearing that.
yeah, I did that already. Let me try it again.
Okay.
Here. Now, where am I? Here. audio.
Is there a little box in the lower left corner that says share audio? Do you see that? Are you on Chrome or what browser? Should be a little box in the lower left corner, I think.
Do you want to push pause on the recorder, or
I thought I heard something there for a split second. I don't know if y'all heard that one or not.
is Bluetooth disconnecting?
Yeah, you guys didn't hear that when I was playing the video there. Correct. Okay. See, because when I have it play from the system as opposed to my Bluetooth speakers. Hang on a second here. Let me try this. I'm going to try this again. Okay. Okay. And my apologies. I'm not sure what's going on here. So I guess we won't play this video. Basically, what it says is that. Oh, hang on. Let me get out of this. Here.
So
Gaetano, would you like me to play it from my screen?
Yeah. See if you can share it, that would be great. We can watch.
see.
'Cause yeah. I think Amber's correct. Something is trying to prevent us from having a smooth meeting here.
Can
You
you
just
see
don't
that?
like it when we're talking truth.
Yeah, for sure.
That?
We see the screen there, Taz, but we're not. You haven't started the video, have you? There we go.
Hmm.
Do you want to hit play? It won't play.
What if I translated it this way?
I hear that.
When God
You all
began to
hearing
create
that?
the heavens and the earth, you say, well, that's cheating. You can't do
Yes,
that.
we hear.
Yes, I can. I have a PhD in Hebrew. I can do whatever.
Thank you, sister.
Clause structure is the key to understanding why Genesis 1:1 through 3 can be taken a variety of ways. That's the key, and that's the thing nobody looks at unless you're a grammar geek, okay? Unless you're somebody who spends time doing, Hebrew things, working in the Hebrew text. Then you're confronted with it immediately. But in English Bibles, it just depends on the translation. A clause is, we kind of think of it as a sentence, a group of related words containing a subject and verb. It may or may not express a complete thought. A verb might be present or it might be understood. You know about understood subjects and understood verbs, things that just aren't there in the text, but you kind of know because you know English that they belong there. Same thing happens in Hebrew. There are independent clauses, and these are clauses that contain a subject and a verb and express a complete thought. They stand alone. They don't need anything else to express the complete thought. Example, Jim studied in his room for his chemistry exam. It's a complete thought. It's not giving you the impression that you're missing any information in order to completely understand it. There are dependent clauses, though, that don't stand alone. When Jim studied in his room for his chemistry exam, what? I mean, it feels like there's something that is supposed to come afterward to complete the idea. Just by adding that one word, it has a sense of incompletion. It has a sense of lacking something else. When Jim studied in his room for his chemistry exam, he was able to concentrate. Now we have the full picture. We have the full idea. And in fact, the underlined part here, he was able to concentrate, that actually could stand by itself. You could put something before it too. His brother stayed away when Jim studied in his room for his chemistry exam. That gives you a complete, and it gives you a fullness. You're not looking for something else, which is the basic idea. In a dependent situation, a dependent clause, you feel like you've got to have something else to get the full idea. This same situation happens in the first 3 verses of Genesis. There are a series of clauses, and the question is, which ones can stand alone, and which ones depend on the others for their meaning? So the question is, independent or dependent? And once we know that, we'll know what the main idea, the full sentence or sentences, we'll know what the main idea is or isn't. Now here's one way to look at the first 3 verses. I have the second verse in blue for a reason. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. What is the role of verse 2? Does it proceed from verse 1, or does it do something else? Do we have a sequence, a chronology? Or do we have, okay, first verse 1 happens, God creates heavens and the earth. Then the earth was without form and void, as though that's the result of verse 1. And then verse 3 follows. It's a linear sequence. 2 is the result of 1, 3 follows 2. No kidding, Mike, it's 1, 2, 3. All right? Is that the way we're supposed to look at it? Now, traditionally, that is how Genesis 1 through 3 has been understood. 2 is the result of verse 1. That's the traditional interpretation. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That is viewed as the first creative act. God does something in verse 1. The result of that are the conditions we see in verse 2. The writer kind of lets us know what the result of God's creating in verse 1 was. And then he moves on to God getting down to business in verse 3. Okay, so God creates the heavens and the earth, and oh, by the way, when he did that, the earth was formless and empty, and all these conditions. And then God said, "Let there be light," and we get down to business. Okay, that's the traditional way of looking at it. So we have independent clauses in verses 1 and 3, and dependent in 2, and the dependent is the result. That's the relationship. So here I have grayed out, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That's the translation we're used to. But now let's play around a little bit. What if I translated it this way? When God began to create the heavens and the earth, you say, "Well, that's cheating. You can't do that." Yes, I can. I have a PhD in Hebrew. I can do whatever. No, seriously, if you look in the Jewish Publication Society translation of Genesis 1:1, that's it. When God began to create the heavens and the earth. Now, is that a complete thought or an incomplete thought? That one's certainly incomplete because it's prepping something to follow. You're being prepped as a reader. So when you put the word "when" in front of it, you know that it's just leading to something. It's not an independent thought or act. It's leading to one that you haven't gotten to yet. Now let's put them side by side, or I'll get there eventually. We have in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Again, that's the traditional translation that most of us are used to. Hebrew, of course, was not written with any vowels. I have added a vowel here in red. If I was a Hebrew scribe using the vowel system that was invented at around the 8th century AD, those are the only vowels we have, those little dots and squiggles that you see on a Hebrew text, the vowel system. If I wanted to be sure that my reader would understand I'm talking about the beginning, in the beginning, I would use that little mark that looks like a capital T. And it would be pronounced ba-reshit. That's called in Hebrew the definite article. Just like English definite article, the word for the. Now, if I wanted to opt for when God began, it would look this way. It'd be 2 dots underneath. And that means there is no definite article. It's a vocal cue that we don't have a definite article here. That would be be-reshit. Which one do you think is in your Hebrew Bible? The Hebrew Bible that like everybody uses now, that has come down to us from centuries ago. The Dead Sea Scrolls do not have vowels. Vowels only start again in the Middle Ages. Which one do you think we get in Hebrew texts that have vowels? It's be-reshit. The translation, when God began to create, is a completely legitimate translation. So let's go back here. We got 2 possible translations. If we opt for the when translation, now look, I've changed the colors. Now we have dependent clauses. We don't have a series of independent ideas. We have 2 full verses of clauses that are leading up to something. And that something is verse 3, and that is the main idea. That's the independent thought. So here, just think about it. Read along with me or in your mind, and just think about how it sounds. When God began to create the heavens and the earth, now the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. It really has a different feel. It sounds like everything in verses 1 and 2 are just prep. They're not really happening. They're the writer describing what conditions, now catch this, the writer is describing conditions that already exist before God actually creates anything, before God actually speaks anything into existence. In other words, you have a situation where verses 1 and 2 lead to verse 3, and they set it up. The first creative act, the first thing God does in Genesis 1 through 3, in this view, is not verse 1. It's verse 3. That's the very first thing that God speaks into existence. For lack of a better term, I couldn't think of anything that's very witty or alliterated. I put Hebrew syntax view, because this is strict Hebrew syntax. Syntax is sentence structure, sentence relationships. If you're going to just go by what the Hebrew says, like a zealot, strictly, obeying the rules of Hebrew grammar, that is what you get.
Back to you now.
Thank you very much, Tez, for doing that. I appreciate it. I'm just trying to share my screen again. Get back to the calendar. Share. Are we seeing the view here? I'm going to bring it up. You guys seeing this back then? You want to give me some confirmation? Yes. Okay. Good.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Like I said, when I'm doing the slides, I can't see the actual Google Meeting app, so I don't see any feedback. Okay. So this is so this view of the Hebrew syntax structure that Michael was just talking about shows that the first creative act of the creation week was let there be light. Now, I'm not claiming that the first creative act was let there be light, because the heavens and the earth were in existence before that, because they were formless and void. So in other words, those were what was done on New Moon Day. He just didn't form them for their proper function. Okay, so in this view, the day starts with the light, not with the darkness that came before it. See, many will argue that the first day of creation had to start in darkness, because that's when he creates the heavens and the earth, and there was no light there. So it was a dark period, and then light happens, and that's saying that the night comes before the day. Okay, in their assessment. Okay. But what I'm asserting is that New Moon Day is what actually happened on the first day, and that's when he created, the earth was formless and void. Okay, and it's pointing to the first creative act of creation week. The creation week starts on day 1, which is the second day of creation, not the first day of creation. The first day of creation was the New Moon Day, and this is pointing. When he starts in Genesis 1:1 there, they're actually trying to point to the creation week, the week of creation, when he assigns everything. Okay, so this happens. So everything happened in Genesis 1:1 is New Moon Day, and that's pointing to the creation week, which is forming and assigning the rules of what was created, or bara, on New Moon Day, and this is the Asa portion of it. And this comports and makes perfect sense. And now scripture seems to align with itself. Okay. This is all I was trying to show with all of this. Okay. So getting back, do we have any questions about what I just explained? In other words, what Michael Heiser was saying is that verses 1 and 2 were actually we're leading up to the fact that what this portion of Genesis is trying to describe is let there be light as the start of the creation week. It's not the first day of creation, because that was New Moon Day, but the creation week, which is the example that he gives us to live by, to remember the Shabbat, the 7-day period, work 6, rest 7. Okay? Are we understanding what I'm trying to get at here? Am I being clear? Anybody? No, or we're good?
It's clear to me, brother.
Yeah.
I
Thanks,
have also read the Genesis book from James D. Talbot. He
Mhm.
did a lot with the Dead Sea Scrolls, so that it just all makes sense.
Thank you.
So
Yes, it does, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. So okay, I'm glad we're in agreement here. Anybody else have anything else, or if not, I'll move on to the